Has Father Time caught up to John Tavares to the point that he can no longer center the second line? What is happening with Ryan Reaves? Some pretty interesting reports dropped yesterday highlighting his health and some reasons as to why he's not back into the lineup despite being quote unquote healthy. All of that and much more in this episode of Leafs Digest. And guys, welcome back to Leafs Digest. My name is Darius Domingues. Before we get any further into the video, we've noticed that about 80% of the people watching our videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you could do myself and Nick a favor, hit that subscribe button and do yourself a favor by hitting the subscribe button so you could stay up to date with everything Toronto Maple Leafs. And guys, without further ado, let's get right into it. I want to start with Mr. Ryan Reaves. What's up with Ryan Reaves? Some pretty interesting news dropped yesterday highlighting Ryan Reaves and his injury status or lack thereof. Well, you could go either way with it. It seems like he's still pretty much injured. It's really, really interesting situation, but let's get right into it. From TSN Hockey, and that's hockey, Ryan Reaves revealed yesterday that he's been healthy for weeks, but hasn't been taken off the injury reserve by the Maple Leafs. And obviously, if you want to go read or watch the video with Gino Reda for more information, go check that out. But we'll jump right into some other news. Ryan Reaves says that he's healthy while also saying that his knees are not healthy whatsoever. So you can't really, and it's true, you cannot take, as Rachel says here, you know, this is why you can't take players at face value when they say they're healthy. You cannot take hockey players 100% serious when they say they're healthy, because clearly from the quote we'll get back to in a second, Ryan Reaves is not healthy. You may think he's healthy, but based off this quote, I don't know if you want this guy back in the lineup. And I think that's, you know, spells a little bit of trouble for the Leafs and what they've done with their offseason moves so far halfway through a season. But to get back into it, he was talking about his knees and these knee braces that he wears. And, you know, he said, I've tried taking them off and my knees are so loose that when I cut, like to get out of bed the next morning, sometimes they pop out. So I keep them on. I think he's referring to these knee braces, and I wouldn't even practice well without them at this point. So he can't even practice without knee braces. His knees are loose and they keep popping out of place when he wakes up in the morning. Tough look for Treliving on this signing, I have to say. He hasn't brought much to the lineup besides the first two games. He became a very bad liability near the end when he got injured, and now he's healthy and can get back in the lineup and they're keeping him on the IR. I'm not sure Ryan Reaves is ever going to see the ice again for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's 37 years old. He signed a 3-year contract, which is crazy. I'm not sure what they're going to do, because if they place him on waivers, he's going to go to the Marlies. Nobody's going to claim Ryan Reaves at this point in his career, and they're just going to have to find a way to bury the salary. It's a tough signing right now. It's an over 35 contract as well. But just a couple of the offseason moves, man, like Ryan Reaves, you got John Klingberg, who's not going to play. He might never play again in the NHL. So tough look for a couple of the moves so far. And I mean, we're not going to get into it in this video, but Tyler Bertuzzi having a bit of a tough season too. You'd like to see the left wings take a bit of a jump. And the Leafs still really haven't found their first line left wing either. It has been it's been a whirlwind. But to get into it further, the idea of Ryan Reaves wasn't wrong, and I totally agree with this take as well. I think bringing Ryan Reaves in, the vibes were great the first like 2 games. Okay, the vibes were very high. I was excited for him to bash some heads in. I'm a fan of the early 2000 Leafs. You know, I love that style of play and the fact that, you know, like I said, they just, you know, ran around hitting people and bashing heads in. But I was really looking forward to that from Ryan Reaves. So the idea of him wasn't wrong, especially because the Leafs lacked that and they need more of that. He's a good locker room guy. He's a good vibes guy. Really tough, and had a goals for expectancy of 48.76 last year with Minnesota, which, you know, in the role he was playing is not terrible, not even close to his stats this year. Okay. Like Steven says here, you can work with that, right? You can absolutely work with that. And, you know, to bet on him doing that at 37 with his knees the way they are, I mean, you must have a discussion on injury history and what's going on when you sign the player. So he must have just been signed based off vibes, what he was going to bring to the locker room, and, you know, bring on the ice, which he did in the first 2 games. But I don't know where that went after that. And then he obviously got hurt. And in between games 2 and whenever he got hurt, I can't remember what game it was, he was a liability. He was on the ice for 12, 13 goals against in 0-4. It was a tough look. I shouldn't say 0-4. He actually scored a goal this year against Chicago, which is hilarious. But I have to say, I like Ryan Reaves. He's, like we keep saying, the vibes, love it, right? I love what he brings to a team. But at 37 years old, the 3-year contract, the fact that he's already hurt, the fact that his knees are not really holding up, and he's admitted it yesterday, it is a tough look. I'm not sure what the answer is here. I think the only answer might be to waive him. He doesn't add any value besides what he brought the first 2 games, and I didn't see that out of him the rest of the way, so I'm not sure he can make it back into your lineup. I like what Bobby McMahon has brought to the lineup. Obviously, he was scratched last game for Nick Robertson, who finally scored. Love to see that for Nick Robertson, but I'm not sure he can make his way back into the lineup. And speaking of the lineup, some interesting moves we've seen over the last week trying to get the team back in order. And there's one guy we have to talk about because we haven't talked about him on the channel pretty much all year, and he's the talk of the town right now, and that is John Tavares. Has Father Time finally caught up to John Tavares? That is the question everybody is asking recently. And I have to say, in terms of stats, and we can, we'll take a look at the stats here. He is pretty much a guaranteed point a game player every year. If you take a look from his Islander days all the way to last year with the Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, he is good for almost exactly, it's pretty impressive, almost exactly a point a game every year. And that's what he is, and that's what he brought to the Leafs when they signed him. We knew the back end of this contract was going to look a little tough as he got to 33, 34 years old, right? We knew he was going to slow down. That's just what players do. And then he would eventually re-up at the end of this contract for less money, and it wouldn't look as bad. And I still think he brings some value, but as you can see this year, only 34 points in 45 games. He might end up, with a point a game at the end of the season, but a tough go for John Tavares. And I mean, he's gone, I think, 7 or 8 games without a point. He hasn't gotten a point since he got an assist against the San Jose Sharks, I think, already 2 weeks ago. So he's been having a tough ride. This is the longest stretch in his career where he hasn't had a point. He just has to find it. I mean, Nylander, since he's signed the contract as well, has not been helping. Obviously, those 2 goals against the Canucks are nice, but consistently speaking, he hasn't been the Nylander we know from the first half of the season. But to get into John Tavares further, and something I wanted to bring up because there's been a lot of discourse about John Tavares, and if you want to pause it and read the tweet and look into the numbers, you can do that. But there's been a lot of negativity surrounding him, and I think John Tavares adds a lot. And I think if you look into numbers like these, you get a sense for how unlucky he is. Okay, so expected goals for the worst finishers in the league this season, John Tavares is number 1. You got Alex Ovechkin in second, and then obviously Lafreniere from the New York Rangers, who looked like he was figuring it out as well. But anyway, to get back to Tavares and Ovechkin, Ovi's, he started the year tough, only 5 goals in whatever games it was. He was going for the record. Everyone was hyped for that. And he, obviously, by these stats, it just looks like they're unlucky. Like, things should turn around for these players on this list, okay? And Tavares being the top of it. I mean, he is absolutely putting in the work. Nobody can deny that. He is absolutely putting in the work. And, these are some stats from the last game. 0 points again, obviously, but 6 shots. He had 10 scoring chances, 4 from the high danger areas, 2 penalties drawn. So he was absolutely putting in the work, and he does. And one thing that none of these stats and nothing I'm showing here really say, I couldn't find the stats exactly, but notoriously and still this season, he is a great face-off guy. You can't really... I don't know how to word it, but you can't really see that in terms of points, right? You can't look at his point totals and be like, he's not adding anything to the team this year. He's notoriously a very good face-off guy and continues to be that. So, if you notice, Matthews doesn't take a lot of the draws on the power play and in high pressure situations. It is Tavares because he's a great face-off guy, although Matthews has gotten better over the years. But John Tavares, I mean, I think he can figure it out. I hope he does. He's too good of a player not to. I know He's getting up there in age. The foot speed thing has always been an issue for him. Let's pretend like it, let's not pretend like it hasn't been, even when he was in Long Island, even back to junior. The foot speed thing was always a question, but his bread and butter is around the net and making plays. And he's a great underrated scorer as well. And I think he's going to figure it out. He's very unlucky, and that's what I wanted to point out in this video, that I just hope that it finally turns around. And if you look for if you want examples, if you look at the Edmonton Oilers, they started horribly and they've turned it around. They've won 13 straight. All right, so hockey is weird like that. It goes up and down, and sometimes it's really up for a long time. Sometimes it's really down for a long time. So Tavares had a tough stretch, but I don't think he's been completely useless or ineffective. I think he's been obviously putting in the work, and I think it's just a matter of time before he gets rewarded for it. And when it rains, it pours. So let's hope that's the case with John Tavares. Let's hope he finishes, with his usual point totals on the year and finishes strong into the playoffs. If you want a slump, I've always said this, if you want a slump, it should be in the middle of the season, because that means you're probably going to ramp up again for the playoffs and you're going to be hot going into the playoffs. That's when you want to be playing your best hockey, and I think that's what the Leafs obviously need, and let's just hope they turn it around. But yeah, John Tavares, I think he will turn it around, but it's been a tough slump. It's going to be nice if he scores a goal against the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow night, and that is another big game. A lot of question marks on defense still, but we'll get into that in another video. But let me know in the comments what you think of the Reeves situation. Should they, put him on waivers? Should they bring him back in the lineup, see what he has? Let me know your thoughts. And John Tavares, will he turn it around? I think he's been putting in the work. Let me know what you think about John Tavares, and we will see you in another video tomorrow.